thinking about Trump's foreign policy and what's coming out of the White House right now, like, what's your take on it? Like, what are people missing, or what should people be focusing on or thinking about?
Yeah, so we were talking about how the media covers Trump, right? And it seems like they cover every single thing about him, what he eats for breakfast, what he fucking tweets every day. But as we know, as we've been talking about, the corporate media is an arm of the Pentagon. And the only time that they've fought Trump from the right is when he speculates or throws out rhetorically, like wanting to end wars or wanting to meet with Kim Jong-un or something like that, right? That could possibly kind of go outside the boundaries of what's acceptable with the neoliberal blob consensus in D.C. That's when you see the media fighting him from the right. And actually you saw Democratic Congress people trying to pass legislation that would block any troop removal, like preemptively, from Korea. So that's where they're at. So, yeah, the media definitely hasn't. Of course, they haven't been covering what's going on in the Middle East because they all agree. Again, they agree with the notion that we're a benign empire, that Sam Harris argument, and that all of our deeds are out of good intentions, right? And everything we're doing to fight terrorism is all just and moral. So, of course, they're not going to cover the crimes and atrocities that Trump is committing. That's where I'm seeing a big lack of coverage with alternative media. So what we did at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, we put out the first 2 parts of a series called Trump Expanding the Empire that shows what he has done. Because past the rhetoric, he has very much so expanded the empire and has ramped up drone strikes, civilian casualties, troop levels, bases, pretty much everywhere around the world. And a lot of people just believe it's so weird, man. You just see someone tweet something and you're like, oh, well, Trump wants to end the wars. He's an anti-interventionist. It's like, no, dude, why don't you fucking look at the facts? Are you what are we talking about here? Or Tulsi Gabbard flippantly says something about regime change and everyone's like, oh my God, she's anti-war. No, dude, first of all, she's an active duty officer in the military. So I don't know how you can couple that with being how are you? Her boss is Trump. He could just order her to do something and she has to. But other than that, she believes in the war on terror. She says she's a hawk on terrorism and a dove on regime change. I don't know what the fuck that means. Okay. So let's just get this out of the way. Come on. How low is the bar that Trump and Tulsi Gabbard are anti-interventionists? No, none of these people are anti-war. In fact, no one sitting in Congress today is anti-war. Who's out there talking about ending the 800 bases? Who's talking about withdrawing troops from 70% of the world's nations? Who? No one. The best we have is a couple of the Progressive Caucus who are talking about boycotting Israel. Thank fuck. Finally. So, yeah, it's just the bar is so lowered, it's pathetic. And so I feel like we have to finally retrain ourselves about what these notions mean. Remind people that 50 years ago, MLK, on the cusp of the Vietnam War, we were talking about linking militarism to the domestic problems that we have, to the corruption in government, to, why our country's so fucked up. Yeah, it has a lot to do with the fact that we're the empire and that we expand our military all around the world. So anyway, we did a deep dive into what Trump's doing because, and this was all happening. We were about to release this episode and then Trump announces this surprise troop withdrawal from Syria. And we were like, oh my fucking God. We were like, if we release this Trump Expanding the Empire episode, everyone's going to be like, oh, what about Syria? Oh, well, what about Syria and Afghanistan? He's ending the wars there. So then I was like, okay, now we have to put out an episode about Syria right at the same time to just immediately put that to bed. Because when you look at that, when you look at this troop withdrawal that Trump is entertaining from Syria and Afghanistan, they're troops that he himself added. Trump added 2,200 troops to Syria, actually more than Obama. Obama had a couple hundred, quote unquote, advisors on the ground. Trump immediately escalated that war, added over 2,000 troops, and bombed Assad over chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago. And then you go to Afghanistan. He has ramped up bombings in Afghanistan that fatalities are actually at an all-time high in the country right now. Way more than the invasion of Afghanistan, way more than the troop surge when Obama added tens of thousands of troops there. No, right now. because of the wanton, indiscriminate bombing campaigns that Trump has proudly declared as, quote unquote, taking the gloves off the Pentagon and his fucking generals that he himself appointed. Again, people give Trump a pass and they're like, he's standing up to the deep state. Really? Why did he pick the most bloodthirsty, rabid neocon outliers who were too fucking crazy for even the Bush administration? Nikki Haley? John Bolton? He picked these people. I could have told you he's fucking crazy. I could have told you John Bolton's a genocidal, bloodthirsty maniac who wants to start World War III. I could have told you that. So I don't get this like pass. And I see it from leftists too. I see it from a lot of people who think that Trump is somehow standing up to these people and he wants to do more, but they're not letting him. It's a bizarre, convenient narrative. And we can't let Trump off the hook. I mean, Trump, all of this shit is Trump's doing. He himself, I mean, picked these people. Again, he took the gloves off the generals. He told them to do what they wanted. Is that not him giving the green light to commit just war crime after war crime? And my God, I mean, the list goes on and on. You look at Mosul in Iraq, up to 500 people died in a series of airstrikes under Trump within like months that he got in office. Drone strikes have increased over 400%. And I was the first to call Obama the drone king. This is how much shit has ramped up and escalated like in a dramatic fashion. But because we're all hyper-focused, and rightly so, like on the fascistic policies at home, at the border and elsewhere. And his rhetoric's crazy too. I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on like his tweets. I mean, all of this stuff we should be focusing on. But while all of this is happening, he has completely dramatically escalated war and militarism abroad. A new base in Niger. And then that's all aside, right? That's aside from what's happening in Latin America. I don't think Obama or Bush I know Bush tried to do a coup in Venezuela and then he gave up. But like Trump is kind of a unique person because I think that he is actually willing to go much farther than a lot of other people will because he has his ego to preserve. And it's really like whenever he's goaded, he tends to double down. And apparently these people think it's really fucking funny to like goad him constantly. Like, oh, Nancy Pelosi won. Like with the government shutdown shit, it's like, yeah, dude, goat this motherfucker again. That's a really smart strategy. This guy's like a wannabe Hitler. He fucking wants this shit, man. You want to like, he's going to do some crazy stuff, right? And they're just like giving him a pass to do so. But anyway, Latin America, you have John Bolton declaring Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela as the troika of tyranny, reminding us of the axis of evil. They slapped all of these sanctions on them. You look at the sanctions that Trump implemented in his first 2 years in office, they're like already completely superseded Obama's sanctions. And that, you know, despite all the anti-interventionist rhetoric, which is really meaningless tropes to try to feed into like the dumbed down base who actually aren't even anti-interventionists. If you're looking at right-wing anti-interventionism, they just want the war on the border. They think that we're wasting young American blood and, you know, white lives in the Middle East when we should be fighting the immigrants here. So the anti-interventionism on the right is not fucking anti-imperialism. And like, that's what irritates me too, this like call to work with right-wingers to end wars. We're not in the same page here. Like, and also they hate the left. So why would we work with people who want us dead? But anyways, yeah, you look at Latin America, my God, I mean, the sanctions alone completely devastated and crippled Latin America. They shut down our show, the attack on media, the ability for Telesur to finance independent contractors, and now this blatant brazen coup. It's a coup like we've never seen a coup before. It's happening real time, unfolding on social media in a very bizarre way. And that is fucking Trump, man. I mean, one thing that we try to do in these Trump Expanding the Empire series is we tried to show, even though he was talking out of both sides of his mouth, like what he said during the campaign that was the worst, like rhetoric he's done, he's carried through on. And he bragged about how he wanted to torture people, torture their families, bomb their families. He wanted to authorize torture far beyond waterboarding. He wanted to be more like ISIS. He wanted to do mass beheadings. And he's thrown out trial balloons for several of these things to see kind of how well it's received. He's thrown out trial balloons of staying in office beyond 2 terms. So these are things that are happening when it comes to the world and foreign policy. Trump is ramping up the empire like no one has before. And just because he hasn't invaded Iraq and hasn't been given a gift, and I will call it a gift, 9/11 that the Bush administration was handed, that does not mean that he's not doing an insurmountable amount of damage around the world and ramping up death and destruction like that we haven't seen before. And now when he's picking these war criminals like Elliot Abrams, who literally were overseeing death squads, helping, Rios Montt, who was indicted at the ICC, if I'm not mistaken, for genocide in Guatemala. I mean, we're going back to the Monroe Doctrine. We're going back to the Reagan death squads, right-wing death squads in Latin America. This is the guy, Elliot Abrams. So it's fucking scary, man. And you look at Pompeo, who's an apocalyptic madman who literally says that all of this is for the rapture. It's uncomfortable to know that these people are overseeing the entire empire and they have the military at their helm, and they're fucking insane. And they're bloodthirsty and they want it all. And they're not going to stop.